listening to In-Fisherman Storyline, North America's top voice in multi-species freshwater angling. Here is your host, Thomas Allen.
All right, well, welcome to the palatial LL Bean Studios nestled atop the twin In-Fisherman towers overlooking beautiful downtown Brainerd. This is In-Fisherman Storyline. Got a pretty exciting lineup today, but before we do that, I want to let everybody know that recently, and we're really grateful for, that LL Bean is sponsoring this podcast, and we're glad that they're a part of this. If you like nice flannel, look at this flannel. I like flannel. When you're in Minnesota, you got to have a collection of flannel shirts. LL Bean has you covered, along with a bunch of other quality outdoor gear, and their brand is an iconic brand for all things outdoors. Flannels, hats, waders. We'll talk about those later, but we'll talk about those later.
Talk about those waders later.
Yeah. These live reads are so much fun. But we're grateful LL Bean is a part of this. You can check them out at llbean.com. And we're going to dig right in. So we've got a couple of characters here. I actually asked after the fact if they got along. I should have. I mean, everybody gets along with Dan, everybody gets along with Mike, but sometimes, you know, I just thought I'd throw two controversial figures in chairs and see what happens. But you guys aren't controversial. So Mike Knapp is a Fisheries supervisor here in the Brainerd area. That's I asked you your title.
Yep.
Dan is recognized as Walleye Dan. He's a Brainerd Lakes area guide, and I mean, I got to say one thing, and this is I've always loved this about you. Like, pontoon boats are so not sexy, but they are. There's no disputing how easy they are to fish off of. But you found a way to make a pontoon boat super sexy.
Well, thank you. I think it's just the fact that I'm on it. Is that not it? Is that what you're saying? Or
I mean, if we're starting out with denial, no, I know, but it really, like, you have that thing set up to fish anywhere.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, everybody has looked at pontoons and like, oh, really? You're guiding out of that? And it's like, yeah, I do have it decked out, and it is. Yeah, you can do anything out of a pontoon that you can out of a boat. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously you're lacking a little boat control, you know, and if it were you and I fishing, I would probably choose a boat, you know, but it's nice as a fishing guide when you have a family that calls and says, yeah, there's 5, 6 of us, 7 of us. I just say, bring them, mm-hmm. right? And in this business, you know, we do try to make money, and the more people that fish, mm-hmm. on a boat, the more money, so it works out well.
You obviously have a system down for launching that thing. I mean, do you haul that home every night? It stays with you, or do you have a place you keep it on the water?
No, I haul it. It's out in the parking lot right now. Excuse me, just came off the whitefish chain, and yeah, I trailer it every day, sometimes twice a day.
Well, I can assure you, you're not only going to catch fish if you go out with Dan, but you're going to have a good time. Every time we've been together, I've enjoyed it. We haven't had a chance to really dig into our shared turkey problem. We need to do that soon.
We do, but what I liked is your reception today in the fact that there were turkey droppings on the sidewalk as I was walking in.
Did you see them when you drove in?
No.
There were 6 of them when I drove in.
There's a... Listen, I'm sorry, this is a fishing podcast. We're going to deviate for a second because there are longbeards that live here on a group of turkeys. In fact, I've seen upwards of 30 in the parking lot. You can go look at Rob's truck. He's got a Dodge Ram that has peck marks on the bumper. So there's enough of them where they get a little ornery with each other. But there's a turkey that lives here. I have this is digital, and we're off script. We're way off course here, but I want to show you this.
That's a problem with turkeys. Oh. And I know you have a big problem with turkeys, like the addiction.
Yeah, I don't know how well you can see that, but
for what it's worth, he's affectionately known as Turkeyzilla around our office.
Is he Turkeyzilla?
Yeah. Just saying.
Oh, so he roams from here to there, huh?
All over.
Yeah.
This is a hammer. That turkey has a over 12-inch beard.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd take him.
I would too, even if he didn't have a 12-inch beard. I think that's the beauty of it. But you know, I think that is your offices really next door here?
Literally just next door.
Oh man, yeah. I asked you if you knew where to come. I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, well. All right, well, Mike, let's start with you a little bit. Talk a little bit about what you do. I know that Are you born and raised in the Brainerd area?
No, I'm a transplant.
Okay,
Grew
me
up
too.
north central part of the Twin Cities area, and came up here in 2000 and haven't looked back.
Well, it's been quite a long time. Are you originally from the area also?
No.
No?
I grew up in Eden Prairie,
Okay.
but I've been up here for 35 years or thereabouts.
Well, I'm also a transplant, but I mean, what a great place to live. I mean, an ideal place for a fisheries manager. But how did you decide to go that route?
To fisheries management?
Yeah.
Well, I like to be outside, and I wanted to do something career-wise that got me outside. Once upon a time, I thought about being a guide like Dan. I don't tell as good of stories, and I'm not nearly as good looking. So, I mean, you got to do something else. So, when I was in college, I realized I had to differentiate between either fish or wildlife. And the wildlife side of things, it was more habitat management and actually less hands-on with the critters, and so that kind of helped me make my decision.
So naturally, Brainerd is a great area to be, and I'm from Iowa, so I think we had more like regional supervisors because the fisheries weren't as abundant as they are here. Do you have like a boundary or a jurisdiction, if you will, that you focus on?
We do. So we've got all of Crow Wing County here in central Minnesota, and then a chunk of Lower Cass kind of to the west, and then a little bit going north of Crow Wing County, up by Emily and Outing, that territory. And then we also do have a structure above us, a regional structure. So there's 28 or 29 area offices, and then there's 4 different regions that are formal chain of command above that.
Well, that makes sense. Anything in the government. So I want to dig into a little bit about your guys' history. A big part of this podcast is we love to celebrate, we love to honor the tradition of In-Fisherman, the long-lasting impact that it had on me as a young child. It was like 2nd, 3rd grade when I got introduced to the In-Fisherman movie system, TV show, things like that, and it's stuck with me. So I'm curious, Dan, let's start with you. Was there an In-Fisherman impact for you when you were young? I know you're familiar with the guys and have fished with them, but how far back does it go?
Excuse me. You know, I was thinking about that a bit, and it's like when I was a kid, we were outside all the time. I mean, if it was raining or hailing or storming, yeah, we'd be inside. So it's not like I made a habit of watching TV and watching outdoor shows, but of course I would see Ron and Al and the crew on TV, and I'd tune in and, try to listen in on what they were, what they had to say. And yeah, looked at them as these, fishing, superiors, gurus. But like I say, it's, and then of course would pick up a magazine here and there. But yeah, we were always out playing baseball, football, hockey, soccer, whatever, fishing, hunting, trapping. Didn't really spend a lot of time watching TV, So, but yes, of course, when you think freshwater fishing, you look back at the Lindner crew, and they definitely set the stage.
Well, they had an impact. I tell this story often on here, and I'll never forget it. I was born in Wisconsin. I should be clear about that when I talk about my past. So I am a Sconey by native, but I consider Iowa my homeland. You look at me like you want to disown me now. But when we had first moved to Iowa, as in 3rd or 4th grade or whatever, and or this is after we moved there, my dad took me to the Quad City Expo, which is in the day, that was the hot way to get out and see seminars and buy products and just be a part of a fishing community during the winter in the Midwest. And I remember going through there, looking at some spinnerbait or whatever, and it was elbow to elbow, and all of a sudden you hear somebody yell, make way, and there's a police escort pushing people out of the way to get Al, to get Dan Sura, and one of the recognizable figure. It might have been Dave Sanda, I'm pretty sure it was, to escort them to the seminar stage. And I mean, you want to see like everybody turn and just follow. There was probably 300 chairs in this open area, and there wasn't even standing room. And I remember sitting in there and listening to a couple of those. My dad was like, we need to go, and I'm like, I don't want to go. But that was such a level of I was amazed by that. Like, you can be this kind of person in fishing. And to this day, that impact is still pretty prevalent. And I remember never forgetting, always recognizing and valuing the time that I spent at those shows, because that was the only opportunity you had to listen to those people in person. Now, of course, you can go to YouTube or social media. You have a quicker connection, but you had to wait for it, so it almost made it such a super time of year for us to get out. So I remember those days, and I guess a part of me doesn't miss trade shows because I've worked so many over the years, but I do miss that time that we all came together in the winter and kind of got ready to go. So what about you, Mike? Did it have an impact on you?
For sure, maybe in a little bit different way than for Dan. So for me, when I was a kid, Mom and Dad said, well, you got to have something to do to read in the summertime. Well, the local library had a subscription to In-Fisherman magazine. So that's where it started for me. And
how'd you end up in the library to begin with? That's a good part of the story.
Well,
was it punishment?
It was because I had to have something to read, remember?
Yeah.
And I couldn't drive or whatever, so too far to bike. So my options really were fairly limited in terms of what I wanted to read that I liked to read. So I was going to read about fishing. So the bits and pieces column, actually for me, was kind of where it was at. So
still published today.
Still published today, yeah. And it's that blending of fisheries science with everyday fishing. And that still intrigues me. That's one of the things that I like about my job, being able to do those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. So growing up, did you have a preference of fishing that you pursued? Was it just to go and catch anything, or how'd that work?
My dad was a bass fisherman, so we fished a lot of bass. Like I said, grew up in the cities, but we would take trips up to this area to fish. And we had a 17-foot square stern canoe with a 3-horse Johnson Seahorse on the back of it. And
for 3 of you?
It was my mom, my dad, and myself, and that's what we fished out of, right? Took trips to the boundary waters and that's what I knew. Well, that progressed to, I'd ride my bike to the local river and, go wading with some old pair of tennis shoes to fish smallmouth, and of course there was one behind every rock. It was great. So that's kind of my history, my growing up a little bit, in an introduction to fishing, if you will. Certainly progressed from there. I fish for pretty much anything that fishes in Minnesota in one fashion or another, including some of the rough fish. But yeah,
rough fish deserve a little bit of credit sometimes. I do. I think that I get pretty bummed out if I get grumpy fishing. It's when a dogfish slaps at my lure and I don't see what it is, and it's a big roll. You're like, oh, it could be a 7-pounder. But it's almost always a dogfish, or when you have something swirling under a dock and it eats a jig and it's a dogfish. You're like, man, I finally get that 7. But it does hold an interesting part to people's futures, and I think that this area has primed a lot of recognizable figures in the industry, and I believe it's the quality and the access. And I think if you go to any fishery around the country. You've got townships, you've got cities, you've got municipalities that continue to improve or add new access points. I think we've done a good job as a culture providing access to fisheries, and I think we'd all agree, had there been high school fishing for us when we were in school, it would have been a game changer for us. I might have had better grades. I think I graduated with a 1 point something, and it wasn't very high. And Dad did everything he could to threaten my life and privileges and whatever, but we got through it. I think if I'd have had that kind of motivation, it would have maybe changed the outcome, but I also may not have been in school very much if we had a reason to be gone. But I'm curious what you guys think. There's obviously benefits. There are concerns, and I think they're concerns out of a good scenario. We have so much participation now. We just, a couple weeks ago, we had the SATT on Gull. That was a lot of people. So, curious what you guys think. Mike, let's start with you. High school fishing, how has it impacted your life, and what are the benefits or concerns you might have with it?
Well, so I got a kid that fishes it, so I've got that perspective. It's great to see him out in the water, constantly learning new stuff and investing in something, right? I tell people this all the time. Nobody takes pictures of people playing video games, right?
That's right.
Or 3 people sitting at McDonald's all on their phones, right? Nobody takes pictures of that sort of stuff, right? So he's out, he's exploring, a lot of life lessons, right? He's got to buy his own gear, he breaks his own gear, he fixes his own gear, and he looks at the weather. He looks to see when he can catch this, when he can catch that, tries to plan things, right? So in part, it's because of that competitive piece. So for him, he's always learning, trying to be a little bit better, a little bit better. I think there's a piece of it just purely from a resource standpoint, right? So what folks don't know is that tax dollars generally don't pay for our salary in fisheries. So at least in Minnesota, right? It comes through federal reimbursement on you buy fishing equipment, things like that, but it's not your property tax dollars. It's if you buy a license and then that fishing equipment coming back.
So I don't get to say you work for me. I don't get to say that.
Well, if you buy a fishing license, then you can probably get away with saying that, yeah. But the idea is that this next generation then is invested in something then that is paying the bills, if you will, for full-time fisheries professionals such as myself to manage those resources in the future. So I see that as one of the benefits of these student organizations is that funding for these conservation agencies, and it's not just Minnesota. It's one I'm familiar with, but it's others too.
It's definitely had an interesting impact, and one of the things that we're seeing now is a little bit more stringent clampdowns, if you will, on resource usage, most especially the boat ramps. Like we have to, I think we have to leave half the boat ramp spots open, and we have to have a pass that's visible now on our dashboard, which is inconvenient for us. But you have other licensed buyers that want to take advantage of the resource too, and they've got the same right to it as you do. So it makes sense that there's a little bit of regulation coming. But Dan, you're on the water all the time. It's your job. You're on the water daily. So have you seen any kind of impacts that you're like, oh, this is going to benefit something, or this is interesting, maybe this is too much here? What's your perspective on that?
I guess I look at it as a total, we'll say, positive thing, right? These high school fishing teams and college fishing teams. I mean, it's great. It's another option. And then, as far as, the only negative that I see is just the pressure, right? And you know what? They have the right to those waters just like, we do, but it's like when Gull Lake, for instance, it seems like there's a tournament out there every other day. If it's not a bass tournament, it's a multi-species tournament, and then it's a league, and it's just like these lakes see a lot of pressure. They're healthy lakes. They have really good populations of fish right now. But, I know we're going to get to, this topic down the line, but it's just one of those things. When we get this many educated anglers out there, eventually that's going to, in my eyes, there's going to be a negative impact. But, just having those kids out there, having them able to go fish instead of, be hoodlums and doing whatever else they could be doing, it's just an awesome option.
Well, and I think that certain lakes in general, fisheries respond differently to pressure, and I haven't been here long enough, and you can correct me on this, but I've had the assumption, it seems like Gull Lake is sustaining itself through that pressure fairly well. I know for a fact, though, like we got through some of the early tournaments this year, and we went out there to just fun fish, and it was crap, but the weather was weird. So, I mean, there are other things I could blame it on, but there are fisheries in the South. Gunnersville, as an example, has a tournament on it every single day. There's a Mother's Day Derby. There's a Christmas Day Derby. There's something every day going on, including wildcats and from all the way from that level all the way to the top. But yet that fishery continues to kick out impressive fish.
How big of a body of water is that?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I mean, it might be 130,000 acres, but a giant reservoir.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not comparing Gull Lake to Gunnersville.
Right.
The similarity is not all the lakes in the Brainerd Lakes area are going to sustain pressure like Gull Lake has.
Yeah. And Mike would know better than anyone, with the numbers, but it's just like being out there day in, day out. Excuse me. You are absolutely right, Thomas. The fact that lake continues to produce year after year after year, whether it's walleyes or largemouth, and now the smallmouth population is starting to climb. But last year was one of my best years ever out there for walleye fishing. It was unreal. Size-wise, they were unbelievable. The winter fishing was amazing, but now I go into the spring, and I've told numerous people this has been my toughest spring as far as just catching walleyes on a consistent basis. You go out there, you might catch a few here, and then it's a couple days, and it's a rough bite. And so, and we'll say it's me, because our other guides are getting them too.
I think it's been a tough spring, and June has been difficult. And again, this is from just 5 years of being here, but 23 was different. It was very weird, just the progression of the weather. Last year was, I feel like the weeds were very behind for whatever reason, and then we, the as far as bass are concerned, that weed edge bite didn't start till after the 4th of July. This year, they've been on the weed edge for half of the month, or half of June already. So like, I think as an angler, you have to learn to recognize the patterns of the weather patterns that affect the fishery and where the fish position. But this year has not been a very productive bite for me and other people I know too. But there's always, in every tournament, there's always somebody that figures it out. But
there is.
It has been a difficult spring.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the beauty of tournaments, right? You take the same weather conditions and put everybody on the water, somebody's going to figure it out, right? And then you can learn from that. So whether it's a local league or a SATT tournament, somebody's going to figure it out and you learn. And then you get to explore those ideas and maybe next time out.
Well, and that's one of we love to talk about tournaments on here. I have a passion for bass tournaments, and I worked at Bassmaster for a period of time, so I really love that community. But, sometimes the perception, and this is one of the concerns I have, and I've had Jason Barr in here, we've talked about it. He's got a great vision, a lot of investment in the youth, does a wonderful job. I just worry sometimes that when you have such a large group, and kudos to that group for growing such a following and that high level of participation, but it may not necessarily be the tournament anglers, their families, the coaches, the teams, etc., that see any problem with this, but it might be the person who has a week of vacation and they unknowingly scheduled that week to coincide with the week leading up to there being 190 boats on Gull Lake. And then you're right, the pressure is affected during that timeline, but I think it's the cabin owners, it's the lake house owners, it's the VRBO type folks. They come and show up and, oh my gosh, there's boats at every turn. I didn't sign up for this. I came north to get away from the pressure, right? So I think we're going to see, I don't know if regulation is the word, but we may be made aware of more people who are tired of the pressure, and whether or not that's a calculatable type thing. I can see our tournaments being a little bit more regulated in the future, all tournaments, in Minnesota especially. And honestly, I think it's probably one of the least regulated states in the country. If you have, I think, less than 25 boats, and the entry fees are, you might be able to correct me on this, if they're $50 or less, you don't need to have a permit. Is that right?
Correct. There's a lot of tournaments that fall under that threshold, and they're typically the Wednesday, Thursday night leagues. The bigger ones, obviously, they're permitted. Those, at least locally, come through our office, and we do get those phone calls that you're talking about, Thomas. We do, from folks that, they're tired of the tournament boats out there, and they're tired of that extra pressure. We do hold tournament weekends open, if you will. So we allow tournaments, but we do hold weekends open throughout the month. So Gull locally definitely gets the heaviest tournament pressure of all of our leagues. And in part, it's infrastructure, right? Because we don't want to tie up all those public access spots. So you have to have tournaments where you can have a weigh-in and where you can have enough places for boats to get to the water.
Yeah.
So,
but thank the Lord that He blessed this area with 400 lakes within a 30-mile radius or whatever it is. So yeah, it's one of those things. If we're able to look at a calendar and say, oh, rod benders on this week, wave whackers on this night, high school tournament, it'd be nice to be able to see that, and maybe there is a place.
It's funny. I've got a friend working on that app right now.
Really?
Yeah. So
Beautiful.
I think a Minnesota tournament app, because there's a page where you could see permitted derbies.
correct.
Yep.
Yes.
But those pickup tournaments, the Thursday nighters, the rod benders, those are under the threshold of a permit, so they don't really got to schedule it with anybody. But you're right; it'd be super handy as an incoming visitor, or you live here and you want to get out and fish for an evening. Okay, don't go to Horseshoe because there's a group there.
Yep.
But I think I'd like you to pass this up the chain for me. One of the headaches that I have. I know that it's justifiable, but this parking lot thing, man, is it hard to abide by that? We do what we have to at the SATT, but some of these other groups, I mean, let's not bring the hammer down because it's a good thing they're doing, but like you go to a horseshoe, you go to the lower hay access, at Whitefish, those parking lots can handle 15 boats, and you're only supposed to take half of them when you have a deal there. Like, by not following that ordinance, if you will, you set yourself up to get in trouble. But it's really, really hard as a tournament director per se to say no to people when you have a 25 boat limit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have the 25 boat, $50 or less, whatever that exact ratio is, but then that parking lot thing doesn't match that up.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep. And those permitted tournaments, that's one of the conversations that I do have with folks, is make sure that everybody picks their access ahead of time and they know which access you're supposed to go to, so they don't show up at 5 o'clock on Saturday morning and the access is 3/4 full, and well, it's too late to go somewhere else, so I'm just going to put my boat in anyways.
And that's exactly what happens.
So we've had those conversations over the last year, 2 years, just trying to work through some of those challenges.
So to understand that, why don't you explain, I guess, the approach to coming to that decision, why that's important? Because, like I said, it's real easy for any angler to say, well, I paid for my license like that person did, whether you're the recreational fisherman or the tournament fisherman there. Both have a right to that access, but what was the commission's point behind all that?
So we recognize, like Dan had mentioned earlier, right, that folks want to get out and recreate. They want to get out, whether it's fishing or whether it's just driving around to sightsee, whatever the case may be, right? They have a right and they want to use that water. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to usurp all of the access space just for fishing. And so what this sort of allows us to do is when those phone calls come in, we can say, we're working with the tournaments. We recognize that they have an equal right to use the water. And it's to try and find some sort of a happy medium, if you will, whereby tournaments can exist and folks can get to the water and get their pontoon in, even if it's just for a Saturday, whatever the case may be.
And they should have that right.
And they should have that right.
What about parking on the road?
Depends on where it's at.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not illegal in most cases, but does that count as a half of the parking spots at the ramp?
So it would generally be up to the local municipality what they want to allow for that.
Okay.
So if it's a township or whatever, there are public accesses where you'll see those no parking signs.
I've seen them.
Yep. And so got to be respectful of that. And in a lot of cases, if you want to have a tournament on a body of water where parking is tight, you're going to have to figure out a plan B for parking, which might mean shuttling, to a resort or something like that. But
which, in the case of these pickup derbies, they're not going to have a shuttle arranged. They're not going to have something set up. And I feel like there has been and maybe it needs to come down to, well, let's identify the kinds of places that allow for extra parking, and maybe the pull the name out of the hat thing doesn't work so much anymore. But to me, I feel like that is the beginning of what type of additional regulation we may see down the road. I think that's a starting point where if there are pissed off landowners, lake house owners, or whatever, that's not going to stop because half the parking lot's full. There are other issues they're going to experience. A lot of people on the lake. Somebody fishing their dock. I love those conversations. I had somebody try to explain to me riparian rights one time. I'm like, that's for a river. It's not for a lake. But there's always something going on. But hey, regulation sometimes is a good thing. And one of the things we've dealt with here in Minnesota, it's not a new situation to anybody, but you go to a ramp, you're going to get checked by somebody. And I have some mixed opinions about invasive species. I'm not going to publicly encourage this, but sometimes certain little invasive species make for a good food source, and might improve the body development of certain species of fish. So is it really a bad thing? Probably, you would know better. But the bottom line is there's a couple groups that are advocating for increased invasive species awareness and increased penalty. And some of that would be limited if you were checked and have, I don't know if it's weeds. I'm sort of ad-libbing here a little bit for what I've heard from some groups is if you transfer any type of invasive that you can lose your fishing rights for a year is something they're advocating for. Could you imagine that? Seem a little far-fetched, doesn't it?
It does, and that whole topic really makes me scratch my head, to tell you the truth. Because we see them every day, and most of them are really cordial and quick as far as checking us before we launch, checking us after we pull out. But every now and then you mix in one that you're just like rolling your eyes at, and like,
I think they got the sheriff authority behind them.
so then you just have to have patience, and but you know what, my whole mind just kind of totally changed when we were out on gull 10 years ago with the family hunting ducks on Sandy Point, and shot some mallards. I'm back in the garage at home cleaning them, and this hen mallard was just absolutely loaded with zebra mussels. And I'm like, okay, whether this thing
on her feathers and
in the gullet,
Yeah.
just eating them.
Oh, eating them.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they eat them off boat lifts, and they love zebra mussels. And so I'm kind of like, well, so you're telling me that duck couldn't fly over to Agate Lake and regurgitate, or or that turtle that is in gull and swims across the road over to from Round into North Long. So without getting too off the rails, Mike, I just really struggle with that a little bit, thinking that how many of these lakes have invasives. I believe that it's just a matter of time before they all do. Is that a wrong way of thinking? And I know you're going to tell me it is, but it's just like, I really honestly think these zebra mussels are going to get where they need to get.
Yeah, and honestly, for me, this is where I got to stay in my lane, right? So I'm a fish guy. We've got AIS staff, and those are the folks that should be speaking to that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. The one thing I will say, when it comes to zebra mussels, and I can address from a fish standpoint, is, we've had a challenge with recruitment in lakes once they've got zebra mussels in a number of cases, certainly locally here. And, inconsistent might be the best case scenario. In some cases, it just disappeared. Right, so we stock walleye fry in a number of lakes. Gull would be one of them. And since zebra mussels show up on scene, whether it's a direct result or not, it's certainly a strong correlation. Our recruitment has decreased significantly, almost to the point of zero in some cases.
Why would you think, or I don't want to say why would you think, don't take it the way that sounds. I'm good at this, saying things I don't mean to sound like. How could that scientifically be affected by the zebra mussels?
So zebra mussels are filter feeders, right? Mm-hmm. So they're filtering out the same things that walleyes at a juvenile fry stage require. And so from that standpoint, that's where the theoretical and conceptual idea comes from. Because we've stocked fingerlings, so now fingerlings being, fish in the fall, October-ish, give or take, we put those fish out there and they seem to be doing just fine. Mm-hmm. So that bottleneck is somewhere between day-old fry and those fingerlings in the fall. And that's the same life stage that the zebra mussels are filtering that water of those same things that those fry are needing.
So let's talk about the stocking there for a second. So the freshly hatched day-old fry. What would be your estimation on a survival rate of stocking? I don't know if you stock them at that age.
We do.
You do?
They're day-old, yep.
Okay, so what would be the survival rate of day-old fry versus fingerlings?
So day-old fry, if you get 2% of those fish to survive, it's a really good year class.
Okay.
Fingerlings, you're probably getting at least half of those fish to survive through the first year. So, but I mean, keep in mind, these fish are, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches, depending on how big they are going in.
And the cost of getting them to that age as well.
Correct.
It's not just, hey, we're going to save them for a couple months.
We're not ordering off a menu. It doesn't work quite like that. So those fish are more expensive to come by, right? Because we have to go out and harvest those ponds in the fall. In some cases, we purchase fish as an agency. We purchase about 40,000 pounds of fish each year, and the rest come from our production, our natural rearing ponds. So there is a significant cost investment in getting those fingerlings out there.
Okay. So the one of the things I've always I've not personally cut open a bluegill to verify this, but I understand bluegills will also eat zebra mussels.
Pumpkin seeds in particular, I believe, have been noted as that. Yeah.
Because those fish seem to have, I wouldn't say our bluegill population is exploding to the pre-commercialization days of this region. I wasn't here for that, but I have seen some impressive pumpkin seeds since we've lived here, and numbers of them eating a bass crankbait or a swim jig, almost like a rock bass. They kind of seem to have a similar structure. I've also heard those will eat zebra mussels. Is that true?
Without going into specific diet stuff, because that's not really my wheelhouse. I don't know a ton about specific diets. Mm-hmm. Fish are opportunists, right? So I'm going to talk generalities here for a second. So a fish that eats bugs or crustaceans, it's probably going to try zebra mussels, right? We talk about this with the great muskie debate regularly, right? Yeah. So people oftentimes think that muskies eat their daily weight in 3-pound walleyes, right? The reality,
not as much as the bucket brigade does. We'll go on record saying that.
The reality is fish are opportunists, right? Yeah. If they're hungry, they're going to eat what's in front of them. If it's you and I, you might like Twix. If there's a Snickers there, if you're hungry, you're probably going to eat the Snickers, right? So fish do have preferences, but they're also going to be opportunistic and eat what's in front of them. So I presume that to be the same case with panfish. If there's zebra mussels and they can utilize that as a food resource, I see no reason why they wouldn't.
Yeah, and I'm not going down the road of let's put zebra mussels in every lake. I'm not advocating for that at all. I guess there's kind of been a natural thing that's occurred. The Great Lakes is a good example. You look at Erie and how robust the walleye and smallmouth population is there. Well, it sounds to me, again, I'm not a biologist, so you can check me on this and correct me on this. I'm happy to take it. Sounds like the gobies also eat zebra mussels. So you have one major invasive working on another major invasive that is creating these size structures and healthy populations that are contributing, not creating, but contributing to healthy populations. So I feel like we've been taught for so long as boaters and as anglers that we need to be aware of invasive species. Completely agree with that. I have no problem cleaning my boat, draining my live well, doing whatever, 100% behind that. But I kind of feel like we're far enough down this road now where there ought to be some science to indicate, okay, zebra mussels exist here, but they don't just live in harmony and live on every rock and every pontoon underside without any type of predator that contributes to keeping them in line, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There ought to be some discussion about what, if any, benefits have come from these. And one of the things I wish was in every lake, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, is milfoil. I like milfoil.
Ooh, really?
Well, it's so much fun to fish. I'm a bass guy.
I remember back in the days when the Bass Masters were coming up to Minnetonka, back in the early days.
I remember.
And they were talking about wanting to bring that back because, in a void where you don't have a lot of vegetation, you know what? Vegetation is vegetation, and there's a lot of benefits in lakes to having vegetation. And we see that with our natural vegetation up here all the time, right? You're talking about fishing weed lines for bass, right? Well, if you don't have vegetation down south, well, that's a popular.
Well, there's not a lot of weed lakes down there. I mean, we really do have a special resource here. I mean, most of those reservoirs, there's going to be weeds and slop and goo in those lakes, but it's not a native, obviously, because it's an artificial fishery. But to have the cabbage that we have, and Dan, boy, I'm scared to ask you this, but I feel like by the year cabbage is harder and harder to find. What do you think's going on with that?
This year, it seems like every year is different. And I know every year is different, but this year I'm finding really nice beds of cabbage.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah,
I gotta get out more.
Really nice. Yeah, you do need to get out more. So it's just kind of wild, just to see the changes from year to year. And but yeah, I mean, I had, we're fishing slip bobbers and leeches, and we're fishing, for whatever bites. And it might be a walleye, it might be a largemouth, it might be a smallmouth, it might be a rock bass, it might be a bluegill, it might be a pumpkin seed. But I had a guy the other day, he caught like a 3-pound largemouth, and he's reeling it in and just, it's digging down in the weeds, and he's keeping pressure, and it breaks off one stalk, and he keeps it coming. And then to look at his trail of cabbage, probably about 15 yards long of these stalks of beautiful green cabbage that Power Pro cut off. I'm like, But yeah, bottom line is there is a lot of cabbage out there, and I mean that's gull that I'm talking there, but pelican, north long, It's a lot of good stuff.
This curly leaf pondweed seems to be showing up in a lot of places, and that's an invasive as well.
It is an invasive. It's been here for a long time, and in a lot of cases, it's been naturalized, if you will. Think dandelions, right? Does it create ecological issues? Certainly it does. But it's been around a long time, and it is formally classified as an invasive.
Again, Dan, please get me on the right path. I don't catch a lot of fish around curly leaf pondweed. It seems like does it not create the cone at the bottom where there's open areas on the bottom for a fish to lay? Like milfoil is very bushy at the top, but there's all this, at the base of it, the stalks where there's open water. I don't know what curly leaf pondweed is like, but I can't seem to catch fish out of it.
I honestly don't know what curly leaf looks like. I mean, it must have a curly leaf, right?
Right. So, well, I think it looks similar to cabbage, but just a much smaller leaf.
Yeah.
And it grows thicker. It can mat on the surface at times.
Do we have curly in Gull?
I don't know offhand.
Okay.
I had a picture of it.
Okay.
There's a number of lakes where curly leaf is.
Yeah, I can see that from here. I can't say that I'm super familiar with that.
And
maybe that's a good thing.
I will say this, Dan. If it is in Gull, it's not thick like it is in some other lakes, and it's probably more in the upper chain lakes than it is on Gull proper, or it would be in more of the bays, not the main lake. Those are just the habitats that it tends to do better in, and so that's where we see it. I would be surprised if it's not out there somewhere, to be honest with you, because it's in most lakes.
Okay. And Thomas, you being a bass guy, you're always in the weeds, right?
I'm in the weeds in this podcast too a lot, if I want to be honest.
Well, I'm sure I will be too. But we fish over the weeds, and we fish on the edge of the weeds, and we fish the rocks, and so I'm not in there, harvesting the weeds like you are. But
I've lost a lot of jigs in there. It's just intriguing to me, the different fisheries I've been on. How the vegetation differs and the structure differs, and I'm talking reservoirs to the natural lakes of Florida all the way up into the North Country here. But the other thing is I would say Minnesota probably leads the way in invasive prevention efforts. I've not seen or been around another state that has the stringent laws, and we'll call it enforcement, but the folks at the ramps that are checking things and trying to provide accountability. I think it's a good thing, but we were just in Oklahoma for the National High School Championship, and I'm going to tell you, all those boats, they're like, oh, what's your plug out for? What are you doing that for? I'm like, oh, it's just built-in muscle memory. We got to do that. Some of those guys are like, yeah, it went in when I bought it, and it's never been out. So there's clearly a little bit different level of awareness down there, but maybe it's not as big of a problem. I know you can't speak to other states, but what do you think the difference is in invasives in a large fishery like that compared to ours? Is it a bigger or worse problem, or not as much of a problem?
In terms of a fishery here locally, you mean?
The effect of an invasive on a natural northern lake compared to a larger southern reservoir.
It would depend on what the invasive is, truthfully, and what their ecological, construct is.
Well, we know the Asian carp, right? That's a problem. Have you ever eaten that?
Yes.
No. What do you think of it?
When I had it, it was actually pretty good the first time. Second time, it tasted horrible. Okay, so I think, just like a lot of fish, it's a lot in the prep.
I have a friend that he's like, oh, you got to smoke carp. I was like, yeah, okay. They smell real bad. So he brought me some smoked carp. I'm like, this smells like the way you caught it. It tastes about the same.
They're fun to shoot, I'll tell you that.
They are. They're fun. I've never enjoyed eating it, but I'd be skeptical of the Asian carp. But I've heard Mark Menendez is a Bassmaster Elite Series pro, veteran guy. His home body water is Kentucky Lake, which had a huge population of Asian carp. And they have somehow found a way to add some food value to that. I don't know where it's going, but they go through they have a bow fishing thing. They've got the snagging program. I guess they're catchable to some extent, but they're working collectively with state agencies to get them out of there, and they've had an impact. That lake's bass fishing has come back tremendously since they've harvested these fish. It's just, I don't know where they're ending up. I did a bow fishing tournament in Iowa years ago where this farmer drove his gravity wagon up to the weigh-in or whatever, and he just threw the fish in the thing, and he spread it on his field. I'm sure that was good fertilizer. But I don't know. It just seems like our level of concern with invasive species here is probably stronger than about anywhere else.
And it's probably been happening a lot longer. So actually, my first job with the department as an intern was in 1996 as one of those watercraft inspectors. I think that was maybe the second year of the program. So we do have a longer history here than what most states do in terms of being probably aware and trying to take precautions against invasives. We also have a lot more lakes than a lot of other states too. So we've got a pretty significant resource here to try and protect. So we've done it.
I'm behind that. I think that we do have a special place. I've been to
100%. Yeah.
I've been to Mexico. I've been to Florida. I've enjoyed fishing all over this country. And to me, I'm not telling you to come visit, but the Minnesota bass fishery is absolutely world class. And
Totally.
of course, if you want to come catch a walleye, you can do that here. I don't understand why anybody want to do that. I'm just kidding. My son has gotten real good at cleaning walleyes, so now I kind of enjoy it more. Well, I don't have to clean them, so.
We do get phone calls at our office wondering where people can go catch bass, and I always answer with a little bit of a smirk because I'm like, well, just get a map of the area and throw a dart, and you're gonna find a lake that's got bass, and it's probably gonna be fairly decent.
So let's talk about walleyes a little bit. And both you guys can educate me on this. I know that there is efforts or perhaps regulations have changed to reduce the limit. Has that happened yet? And if so, if not, what are we working on? Is it a good thing?
I would say that we need to do it, for one. And it sounds like, is it 27, Mike? That's going to go from 6 to 4?
It's not a for sure deal at this point. However, it is a formal DNR proposal to look at reducing the limit. Right now, what's been talked about is reducing it to a bag of 4. We're taking public input right now, actually through Friday, August 15th, I believe. So if folks are interested, Minnesota DNR Walleye webpage has a link. You can submit your information if you want to comment on it.
Yeah.
But it is something that we're looking at. It would go through the rulemaking process, and it would be for 27, March of 27, or excuse me, May of 27.
And so can it not go to 3? I mean, if it happens, is it going to be 4?
So I don't know the answer to that. That's one of the reasons that we're doing some more public input on it, just to see if there's a great appetite for 3, that's something that could potentially be considered.
Okay. I would
Wouldn't you
totally
say-
buy for that.
Wouldn't you say a reduced appetite for 3? I mean, if we're talking like correct, you're keeping the fish to eat it, right? So your appetite should be reduced for 3. I'm just messing with you. Don't worry about it. I'm just playing with words here. So I'm a 100% advocate of conservation here, but do you see that affecting your business in any way, shape, or form?
I personally don't. No. I mean, I know people think that it will, and I suppose that depends on, maybe where you're located with your guide service. But around the Brainerd Lakes area, we get a lot of anglers that are just casual anglers. They're not necessarily coming here from, out of state just to fish. It seems like a lot of those people are going further north. So it's like, no, I think if the walleye limit went from 6 to 3, and our customers would be totally fine with that. I know our guides would. There are times where the walleye bite's really good, and you might be, this isn't the case for me right now, but I mean, there's times where you have to pull off a spot, right? So you don't have those fish hungry clients that are wanting to keep 18 of them or 24 or whatever it may be, so it's like, as a guide service, we respect the fishery, of course, and we need to keep that rolling year after year after year. So yeah, we can't go in there and totally be hogs and have everybody keep their 6. So
I think there was a culture, and I believe we're getting to the end of that to an extent where you did keep everything you caught, if it was a walleye or a big crappie, like that, you just keep them because they're a renewable, abundant resource. And when people look at that on their own personal level, they maybe don't consider the impact of a guide service that has 2 sets of clients twice a day for 6 days a week for 6 months of the year, whatever the timeline is, that can add up to a lot of harvest. So you're right, there has to be some management in your boat. Do you leave the option for your clients? You can keep your limit, or do you say, hey, we don't keep a full limit here? What's your plan usually?
Yeah, it's really rare, if we go out there and come back to the landing with a limit. Mm-hmm. For one, it's not that easy to go out there and catch a limit. And if it is a certain time of year or a certain lake that's really happening and we can, we typically encourage them to keep, what they're going to eat, and not be hogs. Mm-hmm. So
I don't prefer to clean fish. I'm not super good at it. My son has become very good at it. And my wife loves to eat fish, but we just, even with his ability to catch them regularly, keep some in the freezer, we're talking in our house, we might eat 6 to 8 fish a month. I know that we're not we might be under the average there, but I don't feel like you got to have a limit every day to keep a steady supply.
Exactly. No.
And by that limit, the current limit.
And people like to catch fish, right? They it's that fight. Fish are great to eat. I love to eat fish, but it's like, for myself, for our customers, you want to go catch. Mm-hmm. So, you talk to people, it's like, what are the slot limits? Well, there aren't any on this lake. Oh, well, why is that? And it's like, well, it's a lake that might not produce naturally. It's a put and take, more or less. But yeah, we need to put our customers on fish, mm-hmm. and get that rod bending, and it seems like back in the day it was more about, let's get a limit and we need fish to eat, but these days it's not like that.
Well, your job is to put customers on fish, and you work cohesively with the Department of Natural Resources to make sure there are fish to come for future generations. So the put and take mentality, could you explain that a little bit? I know that it's easy to understand on the surface level, but you obviously have an algorithm that you need to plug in. We talked about how many of those fingerlings survive, right? So you need to know how to sustain the harvest out of a certain lake. How do you get that information?
Don't be using big words and making me sound smart, because I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
We got to keep it real simple. So the reality of that is we do creel surveys, so we mm-hmm. see what people are catching and what they're harvesting, right? So we can get an idea what the overall harvest is. But really, we're looking for smiles on angler faces, mm-hmm. right? And so a lot of people like the idea of catching walleyes, and a lot of people like the idea of being able to catch and keep a walleye. And so we do stock walleyes in places that they don't survive naturally on their own. There might be some limited natural reproduction, but it's certainly not enough to put those smiles on angler faces. Mm-hmm. And so when Dan talks about, a put and take type fishery, we don't do all of the fancy modeling math behind the scenes on all of the lakes that we stock, walleyes in. But we do keep an eye on, are the fish that we're stocking surviving? Do we see them? Are anglers catching them? Mm-hmm. And if they are, then we'll continue. If they're not, then we'll throttle back. And sometimes associations will stock their own fish. Sometimes there won't be any stocking of walleyes at that point. But at this point, we've had enough back and forth trial and error, so to speak, over the years mm-hmm. to know which lakes walleyes are going to do okay in. And
how do you keep track of a fish? Let's say you're stocking a certain lake and you want to know how a year class is doing. How do you know if someone catches one of those fish?
So we can age them with either spines or otoliths. Or scales, but they're not quite as...
See, there's one of those big words. Oto what?
Otolith.
Lith. Otolith.
Yeah, otolith. Yeah.
What is that?
It's the inner ear bone of the fish, actually. So
when you're cheeking a walleye, it's probably real close to that area?
Well, it'd be further in. You actually... Yeah.
Keep going.
You can Google it if you want, Thomas. But you break it in half and you count the rings just like counting rings on a tree.
Okay.
It is functionally how it works. You can do the same thing with a spine. So you can age that fish, see how old it is, and see if it was a year that you stocked. That's the simplest way of how we do it.
Okay.
There's ways to mark fish too. You can mark with OTC or oxytetracycline. It's a fluorescent mark. And you can look for that to see if a fish is stocked or not. But generally, that's one of the reasons why we age fish, is to be able to look back and see if it was a fish that we stocked either as a fry or a fingerling, or maybe it was from a year class that we didn't stock at all.
I caught a walleye on Mille Lacs last year or the year before with lip tag on it.
You caught a walleye.
I was
like
bass
it's a
fishing.
basket.
I was bass fishing. It's not. I can't tell what it was when it ate, but it had a little lip tag on it. I didn't keep it. Probably should have. It was probably worth $10,000 or something like
Probably.
that. And I threw it back.
Usually it's a little dart in their back. Isn't
Right.
It?
Yes. There's a variety of different ways that you can mark fish. There's some that'll use a jaw tag. What you're talking about, Dan, a spaghetti tag or a Floyd tag usually is in the back behind a dorsal. Those are the most common.
Okay.
Hey, excuse me, Mike. How many years does it take for a walleye to get to be a 16-incher around this Brainerd Lakes area?
Around here, you're looking at about 5 years.
5 years.
Roughly. So, and actually, to that point, and that's one of the conversations I have somewhat regularly with folks, especially in the context of panfish, right? Our wildlife folks, I give them a hard time because I think they got a pretty easy job. They can grow a pretty nice deer in 3.5 years, right?
Yeah.
It's 3.5 years before we have a walleye that's big enough for somebody to be interested in eating. Bluegills, they grow about an inch a year, right? So that 8-inch bluegill that you're putting a knife to is probably, 7 or 8 years old.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So
Are crappies on a similar growth rate?
crappies are a little quicker. They're about 2 inches a year.
Okay.
And these are just averages, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some variation, but
Boy, think about that. I've never heard it put that way.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you're whacking an old bluegill that's big enough to eat.
Well, so that's the education part of this that we need to continually spread, whether it's our customers, just saying how precious this resource is, when they catch a 28-inch walleye, well, why can't we keep that? And it's like, well, everybody's like, well, they don't taste as good, but it's just, it takes a long time. So a 28-incher is what, 15 years old?
could be 15 to 20 pretty easily.
15 to 20. So you're just, and you look at that beautiful fish and you're like, yeah, you cannot cut that. But there are some people that are just kind of drooling over that when they see it. But
it takes a little awareness, though. You need to understand that fish you're holding, there's 20 years of investment in a fish that age or whatever that is. You can factor that to whatever figure. I have always been a proponent of good fish handling skills, releasing the right fish. I deep hooked a 26 last weekend. It came up and belched blood by the boat. I'm like, a walleye. Again, I was bass fishing, just to be clear. But I was like, man, I don't want to keep this thing. But Tommy wasn't there, so I had to clean it. The fillets looked like chicken nuggets. We'll just say it didn't turn out that well. We had plenty, but I think people need to really understand in this part of the country the amount of time investment it takes to get a fish to that age, and who knows if that fish has been caught before.
Correct.
So there's an element of the catch and release cycle actually works. We know it works effectively for bass fishing. I think we'd all agree that walleyes don't fare very well in a live well. You really need to take care of them, but I think their mortality rate's quite a bit higher after spending time in a live well.
sure.
So put them back.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong. I find a lot of satisfaction being a lifetime angler watching those big fish swim away. It really is a cliche, but it's the best part of it. Because you're giving another opportunity for yourself or the next person to catch it.
And yeah, even, as a fishing guide and you have a customer catch one of those 25 to 30-inch fish and they see it go back, that next one's going to be a lot easier to release. They've gotten over that.
Yeah. There's definitely
we don't have to
phases.
keep everything.
You definitely go through phases as hunters and fishermen, I think, where there was a time when I was just out of high school, I shot in Iowa as many deer as I could. I mean, to the tune of 20 a year, just because it was the pile it up mentality. But I think you recognize that phase if you're into what you're doing earlier, and that puts you ahead of the game as far as passing smaller deer, not shooting jakes. I've been known to roll a jake on the last day if I had to, and putting back fish that are of trophy caliber size, and knowing that fish has a superior genetic than the average fish, and it survived a lot of odds. If you want to get into numbers, think of how many bullets that fish had to dodge, that walleye, to get to 28 inches. I mean, that's an impressive story, and you're just going to take it home and scoop the cheek meat out and put the fillets in the fridge. There's a little more, I think, that goes into harvesting of fish, and people should be aware of that.
I would agree, and you think about when you take the life of something, you were talking about hunting, right? I mean, there's a responsibility as a hunter or an angler to be thinking about that, right? And I've got nothing against somebody that wants to feed a meal of fish to their family, by all means. I do it all the time, right? but you got to be cognizant of those special fish, of what's too many, and exercise a little bit of restraint.
Well, and there's satisfaction in that, just like we said.
Oh, for sure.
It feels good to know that you're doing something good for the resource.
Hey, Mike, one thing that just led me to think, what about all these fish, pike, muskie, that are cutting lines, right? I mean, are they the ones that you end up catching down the line that are, long and skinny and, I mean, you have to think. I mean, it was always, like back in the day, live bait rigging, right? If they swallowed it down, cut the line, but it's like, come on, those hooks, it was
How are they going to pass that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now they've got a rapala stuck in their mouth. I mean, I kind of, once again, it's you get older and you get a little more sensitive or whatever, and you're kind of like, gosh,
Let me add to this. So in Oklahoma, we caught a really skinny fish that was probably 17 inches long, and it had a bulging rectum. We're just going to go that way. And I said, what's going on? I could feel something in there. A whole crawfish came out, like piece by piece. It was already separated, but the shell of a crawfish, that fish didn't look healthy, and it looked like it was having a hard time passing stuff. So, I mean, naturally they eat crawfish and survive, but like you would think if they ate a bluegill the wrong way, that would poke it in its mouth. Like as sharp as those dorsals are, couldn't that make a fish bleed like a hook?
If they swallow it the wrong way.
Yeah.
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 We've found walleyes with sunfish stuck in their throat, floating. But yeah, I just you're trolling and you get snapped off, and now you got a shadow wrap in the mouth of it could be one of the gull lake muskies, right? And you just are like, gosh. Then your mind goes to, what about barbless hooks and. But I don't know.
And some people definitely do go that route. They will err on the side of, we want to be able to release this fish with minimal injury, and they'll fish barbless no matter what. Mm-hmm. You see that actually commonly in trout fishing. A lot of folks fishing with flies. Some will even pinch the hooks off.
Well, what is it, Winnipeg? Lake Winnipeg.
Yeah, right. That's barbless. I think a lot of Manitoba is barbless.
Yeah.
But is that a good mindset? It's important to be aware of invasives. It's important to clean your boat. It's important to put big fish back. But how far down the line do we go to accommodating feelings and not science? Some of this stuff, like if you catch a trout with a double treble hooked rapala, like I'm not saying that that's what you're going to use, but if you do, you pull the hooks out and throw it back, it swims away. It might not look great for a day or two, but it's probably going to be okay if you handle it right. So how far in the weeds have we gone, to use a term we've created here this afternoon, to accommodating what we feel as anglers as opposed to what actual mortality rates look like?
So from a natural resource perspective, we're looking at things at the population level, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're seeing population level effects, then we need to look at regulations to address, right? Short of that, it's individual angler ethics. And that's really what it comes down to, right? And at what point, and at what level do we impose ethics on other people, And that's a whole other conversation. I don't know if we got time for it today, or I'm probably not even the best guy for it, but realistically, that's what it comes down to.
Well, and this is, what? The reason I brought you guys together for this conversation is right here. This is the point I wanted to make, along with other great conversation and charming personalities. I feel like your obligation as a group, right? Not just Mike's, but you want to add science to create the best fishery possible. You want to implement regulations that do a good thing for future opportunities on the lake. You want to use the science, your education, the resource to put smiles on anglers' faces. And I think one of your obligations, Dan, is to share that with the anglers you have on the water. Like, there's a very important relationship that needs to exist between the conservation group, the DNR, whatever, the Fish and Wildlife, whatever it's called in your state, and the local guide population. One of the things that's always intrigued me is if you look at any new piece of gear, where is the best place for that piece of gear to get proven? What do you think? On a pro's boat, right? Someone that uses the crap out of it, really spends a lot of time, but that's a short window. That's maybe 75 hours on a boat, and then they're getting their next boat. So you kind of have a sort of a skewed perspective. But if there is a DNR fishery and outdoor regulation, what better resource than the huge base of guides that are working these fisheries to make their living, to get the word out? And I know that not everybody gets along, but talk about a super important relationship. You guys need each other.
We do.
Yeah, and there's a value in what information the guides can provide, and there's information that you can use that the fisheries biologists can provide that allows you to do a better job, whatever. Like, we need both to do well.
Agreed. 100%.
Totally. And we do have a stakeholders group that meets yearly and discusses some of this stuff. But yeah, we need you need us, right? Well, I should say we need you. I'm not going to say you need us.
No, they do. I think so.
We do, and honestly, the education, Dan, that you can do on your boat, 1-on-1 or 1-on-5 or however many are in your boat, you know, that goes a long ways, right? Because, I mean, say what you may, a fishing guide like yourself or a fishing personality, you know, like those at In-Fisherman, right? They carry far more credibility than your average fisheries biologist like myself. I mean, that's just the reality, right? So when you tell somebody something on a boat, or when you put it in print or on a video, that generally carries more weight than if I'm to tell somebody that same story.
But see, we need to learn some of that from you.
Exactly.
And you know, we know how to catch fish. And I can tell you I understand biology, but I really don't, you know. I think that having there's a value in the science, and In-Fisherman's always been very adamant to have a scientific approach to things. And I think that the science of fishing is easy to understand once you've been in it for a while, but if you're interested in getting involved, you kind of have to adopt almost a mad scientist persona. Like, you want to go out and fail. I think we're one of the only games in the world, one of the only sports in the world that you have to be comfortable with failing to take the next step to learn something. And that has to start in your laboratories or in your research or the effort you do to pull row to create the next generation of fish, the next year class. That's where it starts in my mind, because if we don't have fish coming up year after year, then our time on the water is going to get less productive, and we're going to care less and not teach as much. I don't mean to stand on a soapbox here.
No, that's so true.
Really,
yeah, less business, and you know, yeah, it's a cycle.
Can we take a step back for something? I wonder if I could give you the most popular species of fish in Minnesota, could you give me an average age estimate at trophy quality? So if we went to bluegills, you said an 8-inch fish is about how old? 10 years?
8 inches is about 8 years old, about an inch a year.
Okay, crappie. And what would we say, a 14 or 15-inch crappie? That's an impressive one, right? Okay.
So you're looking probably at that point at least 8 or 9 years probably.
Okay.
Because their growth is going to slow as they get older. I think we all are aware of that. But yeah,
would you call what would be the equal number there? So correct me when I'm wrong here, but does an 8-inch bluegill equal a 14 or 15-inch crappie? You think, or is a 10-inch bluegill more your 15-inch crappie?
Yeah, 13-inch crappie, 8-inch bluegill.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
yeah, I was going to say maybe even a 12.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's keep going here. Let's keep it straight on the size comparison. So
Sure, put me on the spot.
yeah, well, you're doing a great job. All right, let's do
20-inch largemouth.
20-inch largemouth. Yeah.
I'm going to say probably 12 or 13.
Okay, that's faster than I thought. Smallmouth of equal size, is that any different?
Be about the same.
About the same?
Yeah. Maybe a smidge older, but pretty close.
What about a perch, to go back to panfish? What's the right size there? 10?
12, 11, 12.
Yeah.
Similar age as a... They're fast, aren't they?
So there's a lot of variation in how fast perch grow. It's really quite amazing. I could see a perch getting to be 11 inches in maybe 8 years in some cases. I'm just going to say 8. somebody that's watching this that knows perch biology better than me is just gonna
We're gonna put Mike's
flame
phone.
me in the comments.
We're gonna put your phone number on here at the end if you have any comments. Okay, so
I say lots of dumb stuff, so just add that to the list.
well, they gave me a podcast, which was a whatever. All right, so
You called me just for the record.
that's fair.
And me.
And you guys are great. All right, so what's this? What's a walleye comparatively to a 20-inch largemouth? 24, 5, 6.
Oh, 20-inch largemouth, probably 29-inch
I was gonna
walleye.
say upper 20s, yeah,
Okay.
28 to 30, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're looking at 15 to 20 years.
Okay. Moving on up to pike. 35 inches. Would that be like an impressive pike
Yeah.
for here?
Yeah. So I've seen pike that are 22 to 24 inches in 2 years.
Really?
There have been some very, very fast growing pike in some of our lakes.
Well, when they figure out
So-
how to eat, they're very effective.
They are. So you take a fish like that, and it's going to get to that 35-inch range in probably 6, 7 years.
No kidding.
Something like that. Now, keep in mind that a fish that's that size for a pike is probably going to be a female. We don't see a lot of males that are going to be getting to that size, right? And
Obviously,
so-
the smarter gender. I'm
Obviously.
going to say that for what everybody's thinking.
So you're looking at a female at that point. Generally, the females are growing faster than the males. Certainly, once they get beyond 25 inches, males are slowing down. Females keep growing. So
And then that extended growth, like it really slows at a certain point where they're not just booming out to 25 inches. They tend to grow around and length and everything else kind of slows. But so
they won't grow lengthwise, but they'll grow in terms of weight, girth, things like that.
so they're genetically going to stop growing at a certain point.
Well, so they theoretically they should keep growing, right? But at some point their growth curve flattens out, and they don't grow very much in terms of length, but they'll still continue to put on weight and put on girth.
Okay, so a muskie. This is always one that intrigues me. We'll call it. I mean, we know the benchmark is a 50-incher for a muskie, right? That's what everybody shoots for. How old is a fish like that?
It's going to need to be at least 15, probably.
At least 15. And I've heard up into the 30 is possible too. 30s.
Yes, and so again, it depends on what they're eating. All of those factors come into it. What the lake has for productivity, things like that. But
So speaking of that, I think we're done with that size chart.
absolutely.
Okay, so crayfish, right? Why are we seeing the crayfish population explode? Is there any kind of correlation between zebra mussels and crayfish? Say Gull Lake, every now and then we do cut open one of those fish that are on that picture over there, green thing, and they're just loaded. And occasionally a walleye has got now a couple crayfish in its gullet. What's the story there?
good question. I don't have a good answer for you, Dan.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I could speculate, but I'd rather not.
And my speculation is, and this could be totally wrong, clear water, obviously it's harder for a fish to catch their prey, right? Minnows will say a walleye is, struggling. It's like, how easy is it to just nose around the bottom and eat a flippin' crayfish that's crawling on the bottom, right? Same with bass. Clear water, it's...
This is interesting. So when the SATT was at Gull, the Student Angling Tournament Trail, my son and his partner Jed fished with Jed's father, Todd, and I caddied the boat, so we parked the trailer at my driveway, so we didn't have to mess with the ramp rig. So when I went to pick them up, I hadn't talked to them. I hadn't seen rods and reels.
Let me guess. The live well was just loaded with crayfish claws.
Well, we can't put any fish in the live well.
Oh, okay.
But
Sorry.
but you're on the right path. They got in the truck, and I'm like, they were eating jigs, weren't they? And they're like, how do you know? I said, I can smell the crawfish. I can smell you guys smell like crawfish. And I'm not talking, Louisiana boiled stuff. I mean, like, there's a smell that they emit. And I saw a pro angler do this on the tournament trail once, where he picked up every bass, was like, and he'd, the ones he wasn't keeping. And I'm like, what the heck are you doing? And he's like, I'm smelling for crawfish. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. But actually, You catch a bass that's in a very green water, weedy environment. I know there's still crayfish there, or crawfish, whatever. You guys know there's several pronunciations based on the part of country you live in. But if they're feeding more on bluegills, feeding more on smaller year class fish, they don't smell like they do if they're eating crawfish. There's a distinct scent.
I know when we will cut up a largemouth from time to time, and
Boo.
I love opening up the stomachs and showing the kids, crayfish, sunfish, whatever. But yeah, well, they say what? Save a walleye, cut a largemouth, or fillet a largemouth?
Whatever.
Isn't that what they'll say?
So, listen, I'm just giving you a hard time, but Doug Stange openly claims he thinks the best eating fish in Minnesota is a 13 to 14 inch largemouth bass.
Could very well be.
They're fine. I don't have a problem with it. It's knocking the sides off a 5 pound smallie that makes me roll my eyes.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, think about for a minute just the stuff that you can learn by spending time on the water and being able to like talk about that sort of thing. And we got a kick out of the crawfish thing because they're like, yeah, there was antennas sticking out of their throats, there were tails, like they were hammering crawfish.
Yeah.
So I could just smell the fish emit the smell when they've been eating that stuff. But what a neat confirmation of a theory, right? I can't say that's a fact, but I could smell it. Mm-hmm. They smell like.
Well, I fished with the guy on Leech Lake. First time I'd really muskie fished, and he claimed he can smell muskies. They porpoise, right? And we all know muskies have a pungent smell.
Nothing. They're not like a pike, though.
No, they're not.
Totally different smell.
But he actually claimed he could smell them. And I've smelt that smell out there on the water, and I'm kind of thinking the same thing.
That porpoising thing always irritates the crap out of me. There are videos starting to surface now on social media. I'm sure now that we've talked about it, it'll be on your feeds if you want to peruse and find it. But there are videos I've seen of muskies with their whole heads out of the water.
Oh, yeah.
And you think they're sick. And then you get up next to it and it's like, whoosh,
Yeah.
shoots back down. But
I've seen it.
what are they doing? They're looking for you.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Check and see if there's any boats out there.
Right. Looking for small children to eat.
That's right.
Yeah.
We need to go. we need to go scare this guy. Follow his lure really close and leave. I don't know. Have you seen that type of behavior on anything else?
So you'll see them gulp air from time to time. So northern pike are the same way.
Okay.
So it could be that.
So when we were in Oklahoma, we saw paddlefish jumping like crazy. So I know that. Again, I'm assuming that I know, but you're the guy that can correct me. They're filter feeders, right? So don't they jump to kind of just... They're not jumping to show off or for fun. They're doing that for a reason.
Probably. What reason it is, I don't know. I don't know my paddlefish that well, to be honest with you.
That was something to see running down the lake
I
at
bet.
65 miles an hour. You're like, I hope that doesn't jump right before I get to it.
I bet.
But they're big, real big doing that. Anyway, so I've often wondered why, there's some weird fish behaviors. I have Ross Grothy, recognize the name?
Yep.
So he told me a story once. He stayed at a fishery holding tank or something. He was during a tournament. He was able to sleep in this facility for a tournament. And he said at night he heard this a tank full of walleyes or whatever it was. He heard these walleyes feeding on surface. They were eating something or coming up to gulp water, whatever. But he said they made it. When you hear a largemouth blow up on a dragonfly or a minnow, like the sound, you're like, oh, that was a bass, as opposed to a carp jumping or whatever. He said walleyes have a very distinct sound when they feed on the surface or do that. And I'm like, walleyes, they don't really? He's like, no, really. He said he has seen them eat topwater. Have you ever had that happen?
Once. I caught a 28-incher on a Zara spook up on Rainy Lake off the dock. It was a beauty. But you know what a Zara spook is? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just walking the dog.
Makes no sense.
No.
Again, though, opportunists.
Oh, for sure. And then my brother and I were up on Bishop's Creek on Gull one fall, and it was dark, but they were just up in the shallows, just thrashing, and I'm sure we could have thrown anything up there and top water, but yeah.
Let's talk about the largemouth bass change. This is kind of getting to the bottom of my list, but this is one thing I'm intrigued by. I think it's a good thing. I mean, Well, let's first talk about what it is and when does it take effect. What actually changed in the largemouth regulations or the bass regulations?
So statute changed. Legislature passed a change in statute, so we can actually go through the rulemaking process now to have a continuous season for catch and release for bass in Minnesota. Really, it's not changing the harvest season for them at all. All it's going to be is adding catch and release angling to what is currently the closed season. The goal is to have that in place by March 1st of 26.
This is a cool thing, I think. This is a neat advancement. But on some of the social media conversations, you've got the doom and gloom crowd. They're like, oh, this is the beginning of the end of Minnesota's bass fishery. But in my mind, I'm like, hold on for a second. Let's think about Minnesota winters, how long they usually go, last year being an exception. You're barely getting an extra month of fishing. I mean, you might get a full extra month chase bass on the front side.
And along with that, you think about what the reason for that closed season was. It was largely to protect those fish so they could spawn, right? That was a justification for having that closed season. And the reality is it really wasn't protecting that many spawning fish in a good chunk of Minnesota. And so really it was restricting opportunity when it didn't need to be. We've seen good bass populations in lakes where you actually don't have a lot of actual nests. Doesn't take that many in some cases to have a good year class of bass. And so even if you are out there fishing some of those fish when they're spawning, doesn't take that many successful nests to maintain a population, especially if fish are being recycled.
Right. And I think the key there is if you're a tournament angler, the keep seasons will stay the same.
Correct.
Which means if you want an early season tournament, it's going to have to be under the catch, weigh, release format.
Correct.
So at least you get out early. I mean, how many times you out pan fishing and you're like, man, I just can't keep the bass off, and you're throwing them back, you're having a good time. But now, like, I'm pretty excited to take advantage of that. I think it could offer an interesting time for fun. But this last spring, I have one of my buddies in Iowa is a game warden, and he has 2 Texas game warden buddies, and they wanted to come shoot a turkey in Minnesota. So they came up here, and we were enjoying some adult beverages the night they got there. And Jeremy's like, "Why don't you tell these guys about all your fishing rules?" I'm like what? Like what do you? Because your seasons, and like they drop their phone, their glasses are like, season for fishing. What's that? And we kind of went through this conversation, and I spent some time in the South, and there is almost, a slot limit. Nobody knows what that is in the South, or there's just a standard 5 bass, 6 bass limit according to states, and maybe crappies might have a 25 or there's no 5 crappie limit anywhere in the South. But I think that some of these limits are in place here. Some of these rules are in place here for, as we're kind of getting to, maybe some outdated data. And do you feel like the spawn has changed over the years to where that original season was accommodating the right time of year for that, or was it just off?
If I'm honest, I wasn't around in the 40s, 50s when a lot of these limits and regulations were put into effect, right? So I don't know what all went into those conversations. Has the timing of the spawn changed? What I can tell you is the 25 years that I've been up here taking walleye eggs at Pine River, it's the same now as it was 25 years ago as it was 25 years before that. Yeah, so I wouldn't go out on that limb and say the timing of the spawn has changed, no.
Okay, what do you think? You're on the water every day.
No, I would concur. That's
I think as fishing intelligence has increased, we're more aware of the amount of fish that are in a place.
Oh,
right?
For sure. Yeah. Going back to the bass year round, it's going to take some pressure off the crappies. Maybe you go bass fishing, leave our crappies alone.
It very well could. That's a great time to catch them, is in March and April.
Absolutely.
If you have open water.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we've. I guess I kind of thought for a long time that was a rule that would never pass. So you said it was a legislature move first, right? So how do they communicate with the data that you have to make that decision, or do they?
So it was at our initiative requesting that as a policy change.
Okay.
So without getting into all the nitty-gritty of how rules get passed and laws and all of that, so the legislature has to pass the statute. The statute then is what the law is, right, as passed by the legislature. But then within that, then the DNR has to make the rules that are governed by that statute. So it gets a little weird, but the short version is it was at our initiative to ask the legislature to pass that and change the statute, which would allow us to make the rule to allow continuous bass fishing. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Oh, it certainly does. It's just when I was talking about the Texas game wardens, they're astonished that we had all of these rules in place. And if you want to talk amazing bass fishing, like Texas is going to be in the conversation. So they've obviously got rules down there. And I said, well, guys, you can only keep one fish out of Lake Fork. Like, what's the difference between what you have in place there comparatively? And then they have the share lunker program, which I think is something we should start here. Some type of,
What's that?
So more or less, I think it's a 10-pound minimum. You familiar with this?
Yep.
If they catch a 10-pound fish, please correct me where I misstep here. I'm totally open to being wrong, but I think that you can take that fish to a holding tank. The DNR will borrow that fish, will collect something from it. I don't know if the share lunker program is during the pre-spawn only, so they can collect rope, whatever they're able to do. They're gathering information or gathering biological material from that fish to promote the growth and development and education of other trophy class fish. So
I believe it's a genetics program, largely is what it is. They're trying to pass along those genetics of those larger fish. We don't do any bass stocking in Minnesota. The lakes largely take care of themselves. So, and if I'm honest, I don't see us going down the road of starting a bass hatchery.
I agree with you. I don't see that happening either, but it would be neat. It would be a cool thing to study, or at least, smallmouth seem to be, I know there's been some renegade stocking around here.
Oh, for sure.
Were the round lake fish in there as long as you can remember?
No.
Okay, so they were put in there at some point.
Yep. Pretty sure
And now there's a population in Gull.
a good population. Yeah.
Has that been a good thing, you think?
I think so. Yeah. And now with crayfish everywhere, I mean, they're going to thrive, and yeah, it's going to be good.
What do you think about renegade stocking, Mike?
Has it benefited anglers in some cases? Sure. I would say that. It's put smiles on their faces, right? Do we like it? No, we don't, as an agency.
I'm being totally facetious with you.
No, I totally get it. But they're, in full disclosure, I mean, there's two sides to that, right? I mean, it is creating a fishery out there in Gull and in Round, other lakes too, where it wasn't before. But unchecked, it can be problematic because that's a species that we tend to like and enjoy, right? What if you put a fish that you don't like and enjoy in a lake that decimates a population of something that you do?
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's where we run into problems, and there's plenty of examples of that across the country. Whether it's northern pike in our our trout lakes, or bass in our trout lakes, or you go west and
Walleyes in Idaho, right?
walleyes out there, lake trout, right? So just depends on where you go, right? I mean, weeds are plants out of place, right? And so, yeah.
Well, there's also a legal side to that.
There is.
You are not supposed to transfer water, so
Yep.
definitely don't suggest it. I just heard some stories I heard there's a smallmouth or two in white sand. I've never seen it. Maybe there is, but there's like there's probably an underground crew that I don't know what they do. They fish in black boats and go out after dark and fly a helicopter. I don't know, whatever it is, but I think that there's probably some good stories to be told there. But
And if you put 5 names on a list or 10 names, I'd probably be able to figure it out.
yeah, well, we will leave them nameless. But I do think it creates an interesting situation to observe, to see how it's changed over the years. And again, I haven't lived here long enough to really have an educated opinion on that, because I love smallmouth bass. I love bass fishing. I think that's a cool thing. But there are lakes that are overrun with pike. I don't know how. I have heard stories, and of course, these are just rumors or whatever. But was there ever a bounty on small pike on certain lakes? Was there ever anything like that you can think of?
Well, there is currently.
Is there really? Okay, tell me about it.
East of town, Bay Lake. So for years, It was the poster child for hammer handle northern pike, right? Lots of small fish, 17, 18 inches. And a few years back, when we had the North Central Zone reg put into place for northern pike, 22 to 26 inch protected slot, you can have 10 of them under 22. That was the chance for those folks to really take advantage of that regulation and encourage the harvest of those smaller fish. And at least by early indications, it seems to be doing something. The numbers of pike out there are down, and the size is up. Now you think about that in terms of one of the challenges we have in terms of a walleye stocking program or walleye management program, is those abundant smaller northern pike, right? They don't really differentiate between a 6-inch perch and a 6-inch fingerling walleye.
They don't care
No.
about anything.
Right. They just want to eat.
Yeah.
So anyways, in terms of putting a bounty on, that's one of the things that they've done. I believe one of the local restaurants has given out a free drink for somebody that gets a limit of pike, something like that. So I don't know all of the ins and outs of that, but in terms of a bounty program, that's the only thing that I'm familiar with.
What do you think about a little bit wider implementation of that?
A bounty?
A version of that to curtail overabundance of small pike, because I can think of 20 lakes here that have, maybe all of them, way too many small pike in them.
Yeah, and so that honestly was all at the initiation of those local folks, right? And we had been talking to them for years, and we were restricted. So talking about legislation, we were capped at the number of northern pike reg lakes that we could have, and so there was really nothing that we could do to put a regulation out there to address that. So it was just a lot of talk until we actually had the northern pike zone reg implemented. And so it was all their initiation. So if there were other folks that wanted to initiate something like that, they could certainly do it.
So the state would only allow you to add that regulation to a select number of lakes?
So we were capped for a number of years at, I believe it was 100 lakes,
Okay.
with a
Across the whole
special
state.
with a special regulation for northern pike. Yep.
So that's no longer in place?
Correct.
So you can add regulations per fishery based on Creel survey data, et cetera?
I believe we can adjust at this point. Yes.
Okay.
There's a fairly cautious approach to that right now, just knowing that we want to evaluate the zone regs. There's 3 different zone regs across the state. North Central Zone is what I'm familiar with here. And so we're looking for about 10 years before we really take a look at that. And I believe the 10 years will be about 2029.
Let's write a list, and we'll just pass it on to them.
Sounds good.
Or, better yet, encourage the folks that fish out there
Yeah.
to start harvesting some of those smaller pike.
Yeah.
So,
They do pickle well. Do you like pickled pike?
I do.
Yeah. Doug makes the best pickled fish in the world.
you know, it's an age-old thing that kind of fell out of favor, but hopefully folks will pick it up.
Well, the nice thing is, the reason I bring that up is if I think about keeping a smaller pike, think about the bones. Like, ugh, that's what a mess. But
Exactly.
you can pickle them, and don't worry about the bones. They go away. They vanish magically.
The magical place called away.
Well, we're nearing the end of our time here, but I do have I want to start a fight, and really not actually, but I want your unbridled opinion, Dan, of wake boats.
Oh boy. Well, you know what? I cannot be a hypocrite. I have wake surfed before, and I thought it was really cool, and just back there, just chilling. This might have been when I was drinking. It's been a few years since I've even touched a sip of alcohol, but it's like it was. I like it. I like wake surfing. It was super comfy, and but I don't like them. And it's one of those things where I've had customers fall out of their chairs. Back when I was using a standard fishing boat, you're cutting across a glass, calm lake, but a wake boat that you don't see anywhere had been through there a minute before, and these wakes are just gigantic, and you're just cruising along, and you hit one of those, and it's like Grandma and Grandpa fall off their chair, and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so horrible. Didn't see it, I'm sorry. And then erosion and the weeds you cannot troll out on some of these lakes. And Gull Lake is my home lake, right? And it's like they go over the top of Grassy Point in these wake boats. I can go out there the next day and see right where they went. You know, it's just a flippin' barren sand patch across the top of there from that boat just churning up those weeds. And then they float and they push into, you get a strong south wind, and Grandview's beach is full of weeds, and you're trying to troll and you can't troll. Not to mention the whole erosion thing. So, yeah, everybody has got a wake boat and a pontoon and jet skis, and you know what? They have that right.
They do. Yeah.
And I don't think there's really a whole lot we can do about that. But it's, once again, it's education. It's like, you know, stay away from the fishermen. Stay away from shore. You know? I don't know. I mean, it's, yeah. It's
I think the waves do kind of, they tend to recede the farther they go, but they're still like, you can see them hundreds of yards away.
True.
But my daughter loves to ski. She's begging me. Well, I shouldn't say begging, because she knows I'll never own one, but she really wants to get out and learn this wake surfing thing. I'm sure she'll do wonderful at it. Mm-hmm. I agree.
Oh, it's cool.
It's cool. It's a good time. I mean, you're kind of not bothering anybody. It's good, clean fun for the most part. It's just that when you don't see those waves, they can hurt. When we were in Oklahoma doing the national tournament, I didn't see a set of wakeboard waves. Wakeboat waves, and I hit them hard. Skipped off the top, and you know how it is. It's like, how many am I going to hit? You know, if it's 2 or 3, I might be able to kind of, get through them. So I hit the gas on the second wave. Not a good idea. We just kept going, and I finally had to. We didn't eat a wave, but that damages boats. It damages docks. It creates erosion, just like you said. But I don't know. I mean, we can't run a boat, within 300 feet of shore? Is that the rule? Something like that? Like, full on plane, a full...
Yeah, I don't even know. I just don't do it.
I don't either. I know there's a rule, but...
But seeing how they carve up those weeds on a flat, have you seen that before?
I've seen it. It looks like a ditch through the weeds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On a calm day, you're just cruising along, and you can just see that. So that has to have some kind of negative impact, you'd think.
I just don't know. I guess what
life,
I guess what I'm getting at, and I know you're going to tell me that you have to stay in your lane, and much appreciated.
I do have comments though.
Okay, well, I want to hear them, but let me say this: I don't feel like, here I am criticizing people's feelings earlier, and I'm going to use that term. I don't know that they're held to the same standard as anglers are. You know, and maybe they got to check their boat on the way off the water, but I mean, if you're driving stupid in a bass boat, you're gonna get pulled over if there's a sheriff on the water. But I don't ever see those boats getting checked and having them pulled over. I've never seen that. And
Not to mention ballast water.
Right.
Oh, okay. Zebra mussels, veligers. See, now I get a little hot on this whole flipping thing. The invasives. It's like, yeah, they're pulling that thing out, and you're telling, what are you going to do? Go into those those water bladders and clean out every little drop of water? Mm-hmm. Mike, go.
So 2 comments I have related. One is personal responsibility, right? I mean, we talk about it in terms of angling, keeping a fish, keeping a limit of fish, harvesting, all of that, right? This is no different, right? And I think that's an education piece that would be good to share. Mm-hmm. The other is in terms of the change of lake use in the last 20 or 25 years. This is just one piece of that, right? So when we were all kids, you'd go around a lake and you would see a 16-foot Lund sitting on a dock with a 25 or 40 horse tiller on it, the old Lund fish killers, right? Mm-hmm. And people fished that lived on lakes. And nowadays, like you say, they've got a pontoon, they've got a wake boat, and then they probably differentiate either a canoe and kayaks or jet skis, right?
And a fishing boat, maybe.
And maybe a fishing boat,
yeah.
Right? But you don't see the quantity of fishing boats that you used to see 20 or 25 years ago out there. And so the type of use that lakes get from people that live on lakes is significantly different now than what it used to be. And I think in terms of fisheries management, bringing kind of this full circle a little bit for you, that's one of the challenges that we face, because our clientele, if you will, the folks that we served used to live on lakes directly. They were the fishermen just as much as the person that drives there and uses public access. And now those folks that live on lakes, they might fish some, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them don't even use the lake, period. They just look at it.
Correct.
And so that's one of the big things in terms of fisheries management. One of the challenges is that shift that's occurred, and wake boats are just one piece of that.
Well, a funny example is I think I was picking up motor oil for my son's boat, and there was a guy in there at one of these facilities throwing a fit that they didn't clean his boat from last year. He thought part of the storage fee that he was paying was to have it wrapped and them scrape the barnacles off, because it's a boat that sits in the lake. Well, he got it back. He goes, I got it back, and all these zebra mussels are still in the bottom of it. And he was, getting grumpy. The guy's like, well, we don't clean boats here. There's a service that does that, and you're supposed to clean your boats before you take them out. So he took his boat out, and this is a wreck boat, not a fishing boat. Took his boat out, put it in storage. Now, granted, I would guess those things are not alive after a winter on that thing, but he didn't. He walked out of there, so I'm just going to go put it on the lake. Screw the regulations. So he just turned around, drove it to the lake, put it in water, and it probably has an inch of barnacles growing on it again. So I wonder, I feel like anglers often, maybe because we use the ramp so much and so many different bodies of water, that we encounter more of this invasive species, cleaning effort and
Definitely.
whatever. So we may have a decreased, desire to deal with it. Whereas I sure don't feel like a lot of those folks ought to schedule a weekend, if it makes sense, when they're taking docks out, when they're taking boats out, to check everybody. Because that's when a bulk of the boats that do transfer that type of contaminated water or zebra mussels are pulling their boats out. And then the same in the spring when they're putting them in. They ought to be held to the same standard. Mm-hmm. It's just the timing at which people are at the ramps checking is obviously going to be more during the peak of fishing season, the peak of water recreation season, which is, Memorial Day through Labor Day. But
Mike, mandatory washdowns, is there such a thing?
I've heard like there is, but
I've heard of that. I don't know that we have implemented that, but I don't know.
Okay.
To be honest with you.
Because one of our guides had a run-in with an inspector here recently, and he's like, no, I don't have time to do that, and I don't believe that that's something I have to do. I'm going, and I'm coming right back to this lake, and they really kind of put pressure on him, but he said, no, not gonna do it. And I'm like, well, you know what, you're working for us, and you...
I mean, I believe, it's the clean, drain, dry, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to have your boat clean.
Yep.
I believe that is what the law is, but don't quote me on anything beyond that.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, staying in my lane.
Yep.
that's fair. I just know I've had a similar encounter with a lady in Cross Lake that she was inspecting my boat with a magnifying glass, and I was like, come on. And she's like, see this here? This is a baby zebra mussel. I'm like, I don't think that's a baby zebra mussel. Like, you can't even see it. There's this, and maybe I don't know what you would call a baby, not larvae, right?
Veligers.
Veligers.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's what a infantile type mussel is. Okay.
Yeah.
Larval zebra mussel.
All right. That's two big words I've learned today.
What was the other one?
The part of the ear.
Otolith.
Otolith. Okay.
I'm just seeing if you remembered.
I need to write these down. But anyway, so I was like, yeah, I wipe my boat down. Like, I'm not gonna, right now it needs cleaned. It's a mess from all the dust traveling across country. But when I get home, I usually take vinegar and distilled water and spray it on the outside, just because I want to keep it clean. So naturally, I may not clean the boat at the ramp. I may not go through the washing process, but because I want to keep it in good shape, I take care of it. I realize that's not everybody, but I think it's probably a good practice to get into, especially if you plan to sell your boat in a year or 5 years. Keep it clean. You're going to feel better about it, especially if you got money invested in it. You want it to look good and run nice, and wiping it down is like making your bed in the morning. It's just a part of your day. You got to get into that habit. So
Yeah, don't do that either. Sorry.
my wife has a rule, and I have not done a good job following it. But her first, there's some meme or military thing here. She goes, if I get up first time I'm out of bed in the morning, I make the bed, because it sets my precedent for the day. And I can't tell you the number of times, and she's up without fail at 5 a.m. No alarm, just up at 5 a.m. She's gotten up and kind of started milling around. I gotta run in and visit the bathroom, and I come back out, my bed's made. I'm like, I was gonna get back in that. She's like, not now, you're not. I've already made it. So anyway, cleaning your boat's like making your bed. Guys, this has been fun. This was a good conversation. I wanna do it again sometime, and maybe when some new regulations come out, or if there's an issue that needs clarification, Mike, you can come in and stay in your lane and tell me the right stuff. But I mean, to discuss this stuff with opinion, experience, and then biological scientific fact behind it, it's encouraging. It's fun.
Absolutely. And we could probably get a new list together for next week and, go off in a whole...
These are the lakes you need to fix. Let's work on that together. Too many walleyes. Has anybody ever said that in this state?
Too many walleyes, no.
I've heard too big this year.
Yeah.
Oh, I suppose if it's the slot limit thing, huh? Mille Lacs?
No,
It's the 1/20.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's too big of a fish?
No, we have a rule of 1/20, and the fish were too big. They couldn't get their unders.
Oh, yeah.
They were looking for a fish fry.
Well, I understand that. Well, we appreciate you guys making the time. And before we wrap this up, there is one thing I forgot to do. And we talked about waders briefly. And it's not because I wear them very much. They don't come in my size all that often. But LL Bean is a name that stands for quality. And if you are looking to add waders to your arsenal of fishing equipment, look no further than the Rapid River waders from LL Bean. Ain't nobody got time for a wet rear end. And this 4-layer lower leg fabric pairs stretch and make it easy for you to move around if you got to bend over to pick up a fish, or if you're hiking into your favorite spot, whatever it is. The Super Seam technology will give you that flexibility. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to llbean.com. But from Walleye Dan, if people want to come fish with you, where do they start?
WalleyeDan.com.
Mm-hmm. You're on the Instagrams and Facebooks, I see.
You got it. Yep. Pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. And your personal email and credit card number is?
On our website.
On our website. He works for you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Mike Knapp, he is a Brainerd fisheries biologist, fisheries supervisor, wealth of knowledge. I appreciate you coming over today. I know it was a long drive for you.
And I don't do it by myself. We've got a good crew here.
Yeah.
And honestly, we talked about the quality of resources in the area. It's a good crew around here that works in fisheries. So.
I would agree with that. DNR does get a bad rap, whether it's hunting, fishing. Minnesota, I don't know if it's every other state, but it's like they get grilled. But
I think it's every state.
I've been working with Mike and the crew over there for a long time, and they are solid, smart people, and appreciate what you do.
Thanks, Dan.
Well, the good news is I think the future looks bright. I think Minnesota's fishing is different, but as good as it's ever been in a lot of ways, and I love living here. I will work in Fleet Farm if I have to stay here. This is a wonderful place. You guys, I appreciate it. You've been listening to In-Fisherman Storyline. This is Thomas. We'll catch you here on the next one. Thanks, everybody.